Hi friends, today on Study Scripture Online I want to take just a couple of minutes to chat with you about the fact that God chooses. People love to debate the doctrine of election, but at its simplest, the doctrine simply means that God chooses us before we choose Him. At the end of the first chapter of 1 Corinthians, Paul makes it clear that God chooses the members of His family. After all, there are no naturally born children of God. All of us are adopted. They are children by choice, never by accident. Our text clearly states again and again, God chose. In 1 Corinthians 1:27-29, we read that God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before Him. Think about some of the foolish things God has used. When He wanted to speak to the prophet Balaam in the Old Testament, He chose a donkey. What could seem more foolish than that? When He decided to pick 12 men to turn the world upside down, He chose a motley crew of mostly uneducated ne'er-do-wells. When He provided salvation, He chose a foolish instrument like a cross. God has always used men and things that were foolish by human standards to accomplish His great purposes. He also chose the weak. What a moral weakling Jacob was. What a physical weakling Paul himself was. And Fanny Crosby, the great blind hymn writer, and Johnny Erickson Tata. But God chose them anyway. And God chose the lowly. The word literally means not well born, the opposite of nobility. Examples like Rahab and Ruth and Mary Magdalene come to mind. Women who were outcasts, yet God chose them to serve important purposes in His plan. And God chose the despised. He took a hated Samaritan woman and tax collectors like Zacchaeus and Matthew, a slave trader like John Newton, and a despised president's most despised hatchet man, Charles Colson. And He set His affections upon them and turned their lives into something useful. To explore God's purposes and His choices, and to discover that He also has space at His table for the brilliant and the wealthy, click on the link below for a sermon entitled The Power Behind the Powerless, based on 1 Corinthians 1:18 to chapter 2, verse 5.